think we overwhelmed the small business and took a little time to get our food, but we'll get back started here with agenda item number 10, Tag Allocation and Application Hunt Committee. Commissioner and Committee Chairman Brad Johnston. Subsection A, Tag Allocation and Application Hunt Committee Report. Commissioner and Committee Chairman Brad Johnston. Informational, the Commission will hear a report on the committee's recent meetings. Commissioner Johnston.
Thank you, Chairman Wallace. The TAC Committee has met twice since our last Commission meeting. We met on October 26th and again on November 16th. I'll just go through some of the highlights of that. We did cover the PIW draw sequence. That's the next agenda item, but I'll just wait until that agenda item to talk about what the TAC done on that issue. One thing that we did at the October 26th meeting was we evaluated the issue with respect to specialty tags for bighorn sheep and unit closures. We took a look at the options that were proposed by the department back in Elko, as well as some input we received from the public, some alternatives to that, and ultimately the TAC Committee came up with a bit of a hybrid approach that was then detailed in a letter that went out to the public and the cabs for further feedback. It developed a manner in which hunt units would potentially be closed depending upon the quota in a particular year and whether or not a specialty tag had been filled in that unit in the prior year. Prior to the November 16th meeting, we did get some feedback, though it was quite limited. It was from the Fraternity of the Desert Bighorn. They supported the approach that we had developed, stating that if this was necessary for unit closures, they liked what we had come up with. However, with the limited feedback that we did get, we would like to put that on our TAC Committee agenda for our next meeting to give the public and the cabs additional time to digest the proposal and provide feedback to the committee before we take any action in making any type of recommendation to the Commission. In October, we also looked at eligibility for applying for both antlered and spike elk as well as ram and ewe hunts, and I believe the request was to have regulations drafted in that regard to move that issue forward. One of the things we also did was move quite a number of items on the open topic list to the closed topic list, with the exception of issues related to rut hunts, landowner tags, and the remaining items that we have to go through the committee or that have been brought up to the Commission already. So when we met on Wednesday, we decided that the landowner tag issues that were on the TAC topic list were really not appropriate for the Tag Allocation and Application Hunt Committee to address. It was outside of what our mandate was, and that if the chairman wanted those issues or that program to be addressed, it would be better served to be addressed at another committee. Of course, if you would like us to take up those issues, we can try to do that, but we didn't feel it was appropriate, so we moved those to the closed list. We have received a issue from the public about active military or members of the military who are deployed outside of the state and may miss the application process and lose bonus points. So we worked through a process where we have asked the department to come up with a proposal or a mechanism in which when military members return, they can get their bonus points restored. We decided it was not going to be something that the department was going to have to police, but rather something that members of the military could, if they lost their bonus points due to military service and being absent, could come back and see about getting their bonus points restored. That came from a member of the public, so that's moving forward. The other issue we addressed was, and this came from, I believe, Sean Shea, was the ability to apply for bonus points for closed hunts. It came up in the context of could a non-resident apply for a bonus point for, let's say, mountain goat or Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep, even if there was no non-resident hunt that particular year. We felt that that was okay, but make it applicable to residents and non-residents. So if there was a closed hunt, you could go ahead and buy a bonus point that particular year. As part of that proposal, they were talking about a one-term kind of buyback, looking back. That was rejected by the committee, so we're working on that. Again, we addressed the specialty tags issued, as I mentioned. We also addressed the next agenda item, and then basically we are now down to just a few open topics that are both at the commission level or are moving forward. So we've made quite a bit of progress in limiting a unwieldy list of open topics for the committee to address down to about a page and a half of things. So I think we're either closing items out upon consideration of them or moving things forward that we believe should be moved forward. So that's about it for my report. I don't know if Commissioner Valentine has anything to add to that. Mr. Flowers is also a member of the committee, so if I missed anything.
Commissioner Valentine.
Yeah, I would just like to say, or put out a comment, just commend Vice Chairman Johnston for the direction he put the committee in, kept us focused, and I think we've accomplished a bit.
Questions from the commission for Vice Chairman Johnston? Seeing none, I'll move to agenda item 10, section B, partnership and wildlife drawing and restricted non-resident guided deer draw applicant eligibility. Operations Division Administrator Bob Hoyen for possible action. The Tag Allocation and Application Hunt Committee conducted public meetings on two related amendments to Chapter 502 of the Nevada Administrative Code. The first amendment is to change the PIW drawing to precede the main drawing. The change would allow all applicants who choose to apply for the PIW program to participate in the PIW drawing. The second amendment is also allowing restricted non-resident guided deer hunt applicants to also apply for deer tags in the Silver State Tag, PIW drawing, and the main drawing if eligible. The department has prepared a document that explains the fees, tag eligibility, and the implementation of proposed changes. The department is requesting the commission to provide guidance to the department for the drafting of possible regulation changes. Mr. Hoyen.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Bob Hoyen, Administrator for the Operations Division. This agenda item was initially intended to be a workshop for CGR 466. That CGR has two components based on two recommendations, as Chairman Wallace just talked about. One is to change the drawing sequence. Presently, the PIW drawing follows the Silver State Tag drawing and the main drawing. And Washoe County Advisory Board has requested that that sequence be changed to bring the PIW drawing in front of the other two drawings. And there's benefits to that. There'll be increased opportunity for those who want to pursue the coveted PIW tag, and that would end up resulting in additional revenue for the department. A second piece of that is a request from the Outfitters and Guides Association that their clients who participate in the guided draw would also have the opportunity to compete for Silver State Tag and a PIW tag, as well as the main drawing. So those are the two components that were in this CGR. And at the October meeting of the TAC committee, the committee members reviewed that CGR, and there was quite a discussion on it. And what they recognized was that there were actually more questions than there were answers. So rather than bring a CGR forward today, the decision was made to put together an information paper to address bits and pieces of the current process. It also talked about some proposed methodology changes, and it was asking some questions that we're looking for guidance from the commission on. Also looking forward to hearing what the CABs have to say. So what I'd like to do is invite Maureen up. She's going to walk through the details of this. When she's done, I'll give you the highlights of what I saw in the CAB comments. The CAB certainly will have an opportunity today to add to that, and then we'll go from there. So, and also what I'd like to do after we're done with that is ask Commissioner Johnson, as the chairman of that committee, if he would make any comments relevant to the committee's view on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maureen Hellinger for Nevada Department of Wildlife License Office. Like my administrator indicated, at our October meeting, we ended up with more questions than answers when we started looking at some of the draft language. One of which is there's more than one way to implement. And that's where we started putting together this paper and the action report, and there's a couple methodologies indicated in the action report and in the paper for the commission and the county advisory boards to review and maybe provide direction to the department to go forward with the language drafting. But at first I'd like to go through a little information on the current process. The fees in the current process, and this is those fees at the time of application. There's a non-refundable application, predator, elk damage, and online fees that Silver State tag application fees, main drawing application fees, the license fee if the client purchases during the process are all charged to the client up front when they apply. After the draw, the fees that are charged to the client currently are your Silver State successful tag fees, your main draw tag fees, your PIW successful tag fees, and then those that participated in PIW because they were unsuccessful on their main hunt, the $10 fee is charged at that time. The eligibility for the current process, right now a person applying for PIW must be eligible for that same species to be eligible to opt in on the PIW draw. So if you're in a waiting period right now, on that species you're not eligible for PIW. Those applicants who apply for deer in relation on that second item in the restricted non-resident guided draw are ineligible for deer in the Silver State draw, main draw, and PIW drawing the way the NAC reads right now in the relation on this regulation that we hope to bring forward. When we did the research for the paper, I found that there was a discrepancy in some of the language. So in the paper, you'll see there's a section on the where we need some clarification on how to go forward with some language. With the implementation of, and this is like one of those things over time, if we've changed regulations and amended regulations, it's attrition. I found something that needed to be corrected. With the implementation of our electronic application process, if a client participates in the PIW drawing, the $10 fee is collected after the draw occurs. Those still applying on paper still had it deducted out of their refund, which is the original methodology years ago when we were all on manual paper. However, when the regulation was changed for electronic applications, the department and the Legislative Council overlooked the housekeeping terminology for the PIW section in 502.427. It still reads, deposit with the state treasurer for credit to the wildlife heritage count $10 of the tag fee. Well, in the electronic process, it's not a tag fee anymore. We just charge that fee, so we're going to need to clean that up. And that doesn't align with the changes in 502.42759B if an application for a tag specified in subsection H, which is the section on the electronic application process. If it's not successfully drawn, the department shall collect from the applicant the fee for participating in the partnership in wildlife drawing. So that gave us the authority to charge the 10, but I had a conflict in language because of the two different methodologies. So we'll have to clean that up going forward. And then when trying to draft the language and determining how to draft it, we determined that there's more than one method to move that PIW drawing. And when Sean Shea came forward, it was just the comments were essentially move the actual how the draw takes place in front of the main draw. But you could also interpret a method of a whole nother application process like we did with Silver State and Dream Tag and all the associated fees. So at that point, I wasn't sure which direction to go because you could interpret it either way. So in the section in the paper, method 1 presents that there will be no change to the method of application, but the PIW drawing will just be moved programmatically in front of the main draw. So the applicant would check the box on the species that they want to apply for. The applicant has to be eligible for that species, so if they're in a waiting period, they wouldn't be able to opt in on PIW. Programmatically, the PIW would just move in front of the main draw, and the $10 fee would be collected. Currently, because PIW is a subset application underneath the main species application, we are not charged by our contractor for that application fee. It's based off of the main, it's covered under the main application fee. That would continue under method 1. In method 2, the change is to move PIW, the drawing programmatically in front, and the whole method of application. It would be its own drawing that would occur in front of the main draw. So you'd have Silver State, PIW, and the main draw. It would have all the associated regulations, application, but then it opts to beg what's the eligibility for those species, and that's where you'll see under method 2 options on species eligibility. Option 1 being those in waiting periods are still ineligible, like they are now for the PIW, or option 2, those in waiting periods are eligible for PIW but remain ineligible for the main drawing. This method, if it was all standalone, it would have all the other associated fees, its own application fee, the predator fee, damage fee for the elk damage applications, and as non-refundable fees. And as a standalone, then the PIW would be subject to a contractor's, what we pay an invoice by the contractor. So with this process of trying to draft language, and finding these questions, the department's requesting the commission and the CABs to provide direction on which method they would prefer, and then we can go forward with the language. One of the other things on the action paper is, what do you want to call that PIW fee? Because the language says it's an application fee in one area and a participation fee in another area of the section, and that just helps direct us as to be consistent with our language. And then in question 2 deals with the eligibility for our restricted non-resident guided application clients. Should the department reinstate the eligibility for those clients for deer in the main drawing and allow application eligibility for PIW and Silver State deer tags? So with that said, I would like to turn it back to the commission and request some direction on how to go forward with the language.
Mr. Chairman, before we do that, this is Bob Hoyen. If I could just kind of highlight some of the items that we found from the CABs. There were a number of CABs didn't have this item agendized. Some CABs addressed it, but there appeared to be some confusion in understanding what the issue was. But there are a number of CABs that addressed recommendations for these various methodologies and addressed the question. So for method 1, no change to the application method, but the PIW draw will move programmatically. Clark County, White Pine County, and Washoe County were in favor of that. Method 2, change the application method and move the PIW drawing programmatically. Douglas County and Lincoln County were in favor of that. Regarding the options associated with method 2, those in a waiting period are still ineligible for the PIW drawing. Douglas County and Lincoln County both opted for option 1. No one addressed option 2. Regarding the question about what to call the fee, participation or an application fee, Douglas and White Pine County believe it should be called a participation fee, and Clark County and Lincoln County believe it should be a participation fee, and Douglas believes it should be an application fee. And regarding the question of the non-resident guided participation in the main draw and Silver State and PIW, Clark and Douglas are in favor, Lincoln and White Pine County are not, and Washoe is in favor, but only for Silver State tag and PIW drawing, not the main drawing. So I'm sure the county boards that are here today will probably be able to expand on that and provide further information, but I guess the remaining item, if it's right with you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to Mr. Johnson to address from the committee's perspective.
Vice Chairman Johnston.
I'll do my best and try not to confuse the issue further. So you've just heard there's obviously a difference of opinion coming from the CABs. There's also a difference of opinion within the committee on some of these issues. So to break it down and just back up for a minute, the PIW issue, which was that the PIW hunt was considered more desirable than drawing in the main draw, and then there was the additional fee, and that was what Washoe County brought, that let's have the PIW draw first because most people would like to have a chance at the PIW tag first rather than draw in the main draw and then be ineligible for the PIW draw. So the committee, I think, was in favor of that change, but then it comes back to the questions that we never talked about that arose that prompted us not having a regulation in front of this commission now, which is if you reorder that, what does that mean? Do you change eligibility standards or not? I think the consensus on the committee was that we did not intend by reordering the PIW draw to change any eligibility. In other words, if you're in a bull elk waiting period, you cannot then apply for the bull elk PIW tag. And that you would have to be, and you'd still have to apply in the main draw for elk to be eligible for that PIW tag. So I think the committee's consensus with respect to implementing changes to the PIW drawing would be method one as outlined in Ms. Hollinger's white paper. With respect to, I don't think we really had much of a discussion on whether to call it a participation fee or application fee. I think that's just a matter of let's make it uniform, whatever it's going to be, and clean that up. With respect to question 2, that came from the Nevada Outfitters and Guides Association, and I have received numerous phone calls from Ms. Bizzetti. I also had contact from former Commissioner Chad Bliss this morning, and divergent point of views on that. And when we tried, I think there was a motion made that failed to garner a second, another motion that was made that failed to get a second, and a motion basically to say, here's the options, commission, decide what you want to do, because we don't have consensus at the committee level. And so that question number 2 is, as it stands now, if a non-resident puts in for the non-resident guided hunt draw, they are ineligible for 3 other draws: the main draw, the PIW draw, and the Silver State draw. And so the request from NOGA was that anyone who put in for that non-resident guided hunt and was unsuccessful could then still be eligible for the other 3 draws: PIW, Silver State, and the main draw. The majority of the committee, and I was the dissenting member, believes that if a non-resident puts in for the non-resident guided hunt, they should not then have a second chance at the main drawing. And something that I learned now was potentially that if I put in for, a non-resident puts in for the guided hunt draw, they may have then an additional bonus point going into the main draw that they earn. I don't know if that's true, which would give them an additional advantage in the main drawing over other non-residents. A lot of the discussion by the committee was that giving those individuals a second chance in the main draw that other individuals may not have because they're not affiliated with a guide or perhaps cannot afford a guide is unfair. And so that's where things stand. So on question number 2, there's a number of different options. You could make those who put in for the non-resident guided hunt eligible for PIW and Silver State, but not the main drawing, or eligible for all 3, or one of the 3. It's really what consensus, if any, can be developed at this commission level to give direction to the department. I think I've accurately summarized where we're at.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Johnston. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Hubbs.
One of my questions is why it seems like there's a driving force behind the PIW hunt, and how is that different from the main hunt? Why would you want to apply to that before seeing you were drawn for the main hunt?
If let's say I apply for a deer tag in the main draw, as it works now, I apply, I have my hunter's choice. If I draw a tag, it's for a specific hunt unit. Now, if I'm unsuccessful, I go into that PIW draw. But if I draw the PIW tag, it's for all open units. And so it's, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like a statewide tag. I've never drawn it, but it's a statewide tag. Now, it doesn't give you a lengthened season, but it certainly gives you an opportunity to go anywhere you want to go during the open season in the entire state. So when you think about drawing tags, a PIW tag is close to what would be the equivalent. It's not the equivalent of a governor's tag or heritage tag because the restrictions on the season dates, but it gives you that geographic ability to go wherever you want to go. So, people are really excited when they draw that tag, and if you said, could you have a PIW tag or the main draw tag, I don't know if I've met anyone who'd say, I'll take my main draw tag over the PIW tag.
Commissioner Young.
Does that cross archery, muzzleloader, and rifle? Early, lates, the whole, everything, start to finish? Start putting in for that.
It covers all seasons, all weapon classes, but you have to hunt in the allowable weapon during that season. So I can't be a rifle hunter that goes out in the archery season.
Commissioner Hubbs.
I think that being said, one of my concerns would be, and I don't know how many PIW tags they give out, but if we're planning on, we have certain quotas for different regions based on biological needs in that area in terms of keeping population numbers, how can that impact it, or would it impact it negatively if you have a lot of PIWs awarded and they upset what the main draw would have predicted or modeled?
Well, it doesn't change the quotas. It just changed the orders of the draw. So you would have the same number of PIW tags and the same number of tags in the main draw, resident, non-resident, because that's set in the quota setting. This would just be a matter of when the draw occurs, when the tag is drawn. And with respect to one of the issues you just mentioned on impacts in certain hunt units, that's what we're looking at too on that specialty tag issue, which would include PIWs. So one of the things we're looking at is hunt unit closures for bighorn sheep where the quota and specialty tags can come into conflict. So we're addressing that too. I guess the one other thing to answer Commissioner Hubbs' question, one of the other driving forces is that if you have 100 people in the main draw and all of them want to participate in the PIW draw, but then 25 draw in the initial main drawing, then only 75 go into the PIW. So you're losing revenue for those who want to participate in the PIW draw. And I think Washoe County had run the numbers, and it's a six-figure number annually of revenue loss on the PIW fee, $10 fee to apply for that tag. Because the people, as it stands now, who apply in the main draw and then are successful do not go into the PIW draw and are therefore not charged the application fee.
Further questions? Commissioner Hubbs.
Well, just to go back to that, how many PIW tags are drawn each year?
That's set every year.
Mr. Chairman, Maureen Hellinger for Nevada Department of Wildlife. NAC stipulates a cap. In the last couple years, through the annual regulation process, it's 22 resident deer, 3 non-resident deer, I believe 3 elk, 5 antelope, and then you can go up to 4 sheep tags, but you can distribute those across the different sheep. And there is authority for a goat, but that has been dropped because of the population issues that we've had in recent years, so there hasn't been a PIW goat tag in the recent few years.
Further questions from the commission? Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, just Bob Hoyen for the record. Just a point of clarity, Commissioner Johnston made reference to 6 figures, but it's between 30 and 40,000, so in the 5.
Sorry.
Annual.
That was the aggregate across species or over a period of time?
We think it's somewhere around $34,000 a year. That would be the difference.
Then they must have grossed it up over a period of years or something.
That may be true. That may be true.
I apologize for that.
Further questions from the commission? This is an action item. I'll take it out for public comment. Public comment in Las Vegas.
No comment in Las Vegas, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And public comment in Carson City. Come on up, Rex.
Rex Flowers speaking on behalf of myself. I've sat on the TAC committee for a number of years, and it's about affording opportunities where we can have opportunities. During that whole time, one of my mainstays is that we should always keep a level playing field for all participants. There should be equal opportunities for all. Therefore, I went to the Washoe Cab and had asked them to recommend to you, which they did, that the non-resident guided hunter who's unsuccessful not be allowed to participate in the main draw, but be allowed to participate in PIW in Silver State. Giving them an opportunity in the main draw is setting precedents for double dipping, because they do have two bites of the apple. That's why it kind of went away before. I know part of the reason at one time we did allow the double dip, and then we had the Tallman lawsuit, and coming out of that, we did away with the double dip. But in all fairness to all participants, whether they be resident or non-resident, we can't have a double dip. Thank you.
Thank you, Rex. Any further public comment in Carson City? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for further discussion or a motion. Commissioner Drew.
I'll just start off with some discussion, but I would be willing to make a motion on this one already. As the TAC's been moving through this, I think it's been reported back to us several times, and I kind of always envisioned it being really method one in my mind. I never envisioned changing it from a participation fee to an application fee, or changing any of the process associated with that. In regards to question 2, just personally, I have a personal concern or issue, I guess, with the non-resident guide hunt applicants reapplying in the main draw. I just think it's 2 cracks at it. I got the letter from Nevada Guides and Outfitters Association. I understand their position, but I've also had contact with 2 guides, and I won't mention their names because I didn't ask them if it would be okay to mention it, but both of them to a person said, hey, it's great for me, it's great for my business, but in all honesty, it's not fair. And I really appreciate where they're coming from with that. I know it's probably not easy to give me that input. So just wanted to put that on the record. Like Washoe County, I have no problem with folks who put in for that application to be eligible for PIW in Silver State. I think that's more than fair and reasonable, and probably just a product of when we made those changes, one of these programs wasn't even in place. So that's kind of where I'm at this point.
Further commission comments? John.
I would echo exactly what Jeremy said, 100%. I would echo exactly what Jeremy has just said, 100%.
Commissioner Hubbs.
Yeah, so I just want to get clarification. So the non-resident issue is that there can be some concern that somebody's quote-unquote double dipping, and I just want clarity on what that really means.
As it stands now, if someone is applying in the non-resident restricted guided hunt draw, that means they've linked up with a guide, they put in this special draw, there's a certain number of tags that are for that draw. If they put in for that draw, they are not then eligible to put in for the main drawing as a non-resident. So they're picking between the non-resident restricted guided hunt or the main draw. If we made the change, it would allow those who were unsuccessful in that restricted guided hunt draw to go ahead and apply in the main draw for a non-resident tag. And the outfitters and guides, their proposal is we have these clients, they want to come hunt in Nevada. If they're unsuccessful, why not give them a chance to draw a tag in the main draw, because then they would likely hire the same guide, and that could help the outfitters and guides business if those individuals had. The counterpoint to that is not everyone has the means or to do the guided hunt, and therefore you are potentially blocking out some of the non-residents who are not applying and putting them at a disadvantage for someone who can then have the means to apply in both draws.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Hubbs?
You know, it's always, whenever we talk about the draws, it's always hard for me to keep up with all the banter, to be quite honest. But I guess for me, I don't understand how the PIW is related to these non-resident tags. I'm not seeing the nexus. Because we're talking about just an order of the draw in terms of putting the PIW before the Maine and the Silver State. So how does that have to do with resident or non-resident?
Well, now the person who puts in for the restricted guided hunt as a non-resident is not eligible for the PIW or Silver State, as well as the main draw. So one of the issues is, would the non-resident who puts into the guided hunt draw be eligible for any of the 3 hunts or drawings that they're not eligible for at this point in time, meaning Silver State, PIW, and the main draw?
And so the overall consensus is it might be considered double dipping and thus unfair.
I think absolutely the consensus is it's double dipping if you allow them to put in for the guided hunt draw and the main draw. But I think there is some people who believe that giving them the opportunity to apply for the PIW in Silver State is not double dipping, because those who apply for the main draw have the ability to apply for those tags too.
Director Wasley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to speak to Commissioner Hubbs' question. It might add clarity to understand that the draws aren't simultaneous draws, that the non-resident guided hunt draw occurs weeks before the main draw. They're 2 entirely separate processes. The quota in the non-resident draw is determined based on previous year quotas, and so it's an entirely separate process, separated by weeks on the calendar. And so the idea that it would give them an additional opportunity, they could put in for one draw that nobody else is eligible for, but then they could also put in for the second draw. Presently, they can't put in for the second draw, so that's where the 2 bites at the apple analogy comes in.
Thank you, Director Wasley. Further commission comments? Vice Chairman Johnston.
I was in the minority on this issue. It does not give me it doesn't cause a significant issue on my part to let a non-resident who puts in the guided hunt draw then be able to put into the main draw. Thinking about what I heard from the Outfitters and Guides Association, and in that people want to hire guides and hunt in Nevada, give them every opportunity to do. I think it can have a positive economic impact. I don't think it's going to have a real effect on the odds in the main draw. And I look at it now too, and I made this comment at the TAC committee, I think a lot of concern is those who have the financial means to hire a guide then have an advantage over those who don't. But I think with all the draws that we have now in this state, that exists, because there are people who don't have the means to buy a number of raffle tickets in the Dream Tag drawing, or put in for the PIW because it's an added cost, or the Silver State application. So I supported the guide's position on that at the committee level. I'd be in support of it now. It doesn't change the number of tags that's going to go to non-residents. That's a matter of the quota setting, not how this draw occurs or draw eligibility. And I think if people from out of state are eager to come to Nevada and have the opportunity to hunt, and they may want to hire a guide to do it, we should give them that opportunity. And I think also there's the converse. There are a number of people who have all the financial means they need to hire a guide, but they're not going to participate in the non-resident guided hunt draw, because if they draw a tag in Nevada, they're going to hunt on their own, because even if they're a non-resident. That's just what they want to do, so I'm not as concerned about the double dipping issue that other people are concerned about with respect to this request that came from the Outfitters and Guides Association.
Commissioner Barnes?
I guess I agree a little bit, Commissioner Johnson, that I'm not too concerned about the double dipping, but when if they're not successful in the guided hunt, they get a bonus point if they didn't carry forward. Is that correct? And that's kind of what I'm uncomfortable with. I think that would give them an unfair advantage.
Vice Chairman Johnston.
Could you do it so that they would not be able to earn a bonus point? For example, going into next year, 2017, they put in for the non-resident guided hunt draw. And if they were eligible then for the main draw, if unsuccessful, could you program it so they don't carry forward the additional bonus point that they would earn in the guided hunt?
For the record, Maureen Hellinger, Nevada Department of Wildlife. Currently, the way the NEC reads with the bonus point program, it is by category. So it's not necessarily by type of hunt or a draw. It's by antlered deer, antlered elk, antlerless deer, horns longer than ear antelope, ewe, ram. So you would have to take an NEC change to exclude the restricted non-resident guided hunt from the bonus point program in that regard. But you have to keep in mind that you have non-resident hunters that opt one year to participate, maybe not the next, in that particular draw, or try it or do the main draw and maybe opt to go with a guide the following year in the guided. But the bonus points are by category, they're not by the type of hunt.
Thank you, Maureen. Further questions or comments? Commissioner Allenberg.
I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the non-resident guided hunt already have an advantage over the rest of the non-residents, as the percentage of the non-resident quota, a bigger percentage already goes to the guided hunt. Is that not correct?
Maureen Hellinger, for the record, the restricted non-resident guided quota is based off the prior year's non-resident tags, and it's stipulated in statute as to the percentage for the hunt. There's a 400 tag cap, which some years we don't reach. There is, I believe it's not to exceed 16.5% by unit, and then those are set for the restricted non-resident guided draw, which occurs in March. Then there is also a 30 tag cap for the guides. Then after that draw occurs, whatever tags are issued, which we may or may not have met that 400 cap, because once you hit the 400 cap, that anybody else left in that draw is unsuccessful. There's no other tags to be issued. So once that draw is complete, whatever tags that are issued out of that draw by unit are provided to the department for their recommendation process for the main draw, and those tags are taken into account. And if you recall, there is a provision, I believe, in policy that says you can't have less than 2 deer tags in a unit, so that because by the time we hit that point for the quota setting, we have people that have already applied and could be in at least a party of 2. So those non-resident units have to have at least 2 tags in it because of that restricted non-resident tag being pulled off the top during the recommendation process.
Commissioner Hubbs.
Maureen, since you're up there, I have one question for you. Why did they originally put the PIW tag after the main draw?
When the PIW Partnership in Wildlife Drawing was established, it was back through the 1995 legislative session and implemented in 1996. It was the original Sportsman's statewide tag prior to Silver State and Dream Tag. So you had the heritage tags and then PIW, and it was the Sportsman's version of being able to obtain a heritage tag. And as part of the committee at that time, I'm wondering if it was the Deer Idea team that put this provision together as a revenue generator for the new Heritage Fund, which was new at that time. Part of it was as a second chance drawing. So if you were opted in and you were unsuccessful in the main draw, you had a second chance at a really cool tag, a statewide tag. That's how that came about.
Further questions or comments from the commission? I'm just going to state that I feel the same way as Commissioner Drew. I can see the eligibility for the PIW in the Silver State, but I have a little bit of an issue with the double dipping. And then as far as the other, I think I'm leaning towards the method one. Commissioner Drew.
In that case, I'd be willing to make a motion to provide direction or guidance to the department for the drafting of a regulation that would follow method one, that would leave the PIW fee as a participation fee, and that would allow non-resident guided hunt applicants to be eligible for PIW and Silver State deer tags, but not for the main drawing.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Commissioner Drew and a second by Commissioner Almberg for method one and leaving it as a participation fee and making them eligible for the PIW and Silver State tag. Is that correct? And not in the main draw. Everyone understand the motion? Go ahead.
I support everything in the motion, but I'm not going to vote for it because I'd go the step further and allow the non-residents to apply in the main drawing. I've been consistent on that in the TAC committee, and I understand where this is headed, but I just want for the record, I agree with method one for implementing the change to the PIW. I agree to let the eligibility for the PIW and the Silver State tags go to the non-residents who apply in the guided hunt, but I'd make them eligible for the main drawing too. For that reason, I will be voting against the motion.
Commissioner Barnes.
I guess I'm going to agree with Commissioner Johnson. I agree with everything, but it really doesn't bother me, the double dipping. And if I have a choice to support some of our own businesses in Nevada, the guides, on something like this, I think I'm going to go. I'm going to support the guides.
Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Coming in, I guess I was more concerned about the double dipping part. I'm going to support the motion, but I do want to just say that I kind of off of that. I think statistically, I could see where it probably is fairly insignificant, where it could have an insignificant effect. But I'm going to support it from the standpoint that I think we're managing some perceptions, and there's a perception of fairness involved, and I'm not sure if you could explain that through the statistics or not. So my vote's really kind of, I agree with where it's at, but from that standpoint, I had originally thought that I was more concerned about the double dipping, and I think for me it's kind of more of a managing perception now that is occurring, whether or not it actually statistically pans out or not. So that's where I stand on it.
Commissioner Hubbs.
Yeah, I just had one thing to mention here. So we're saying basically that, in terms of just housekeeping, you're going to know your PIW draws, and then they drop off the main draw, right? They're not in the bucket of pools of individuals. Nothing's going to be stalled because someone's trying to decide which hunt they want to be in or something like that. That's what I'm assuming that would be like. And then also, you're just saying, the number of tags that are issued are so minimal in nature that it will not upset some of the deer populations in any way. And also, it's just going to provide additional revenue, potentially, and affording others more opportunity to participate in PIW.
Commissioner Young.
I'm going to vote with you and the motion. I agree with what Dave said wholeheartedly. The perception issue is what we fight, I think, more than anything else. And we have the luxury of talking about these things with all kinds of analysts and people in depth. And the average hunter at home doesn't like hearing that Californians or anybody else gets 2 bites at the apple, as we put it. And I think it makes us, balances us out a little bit on that. But I certainly understand what, Brad, I respect you tremendously, and you know, but I'm with Dave on this one, is for the exact same reasons that he just stated.
I think I'm going to reiterate the motion because Commissioner Valentine was absent during the motion. The motion on the table, Commissioner Valentine, is to implement the change via method 1 and answering question 1 with leaving it as a participation fee. And question 2 would be to allow eligibility for the guided applicants in the PIW and Silver State only and not the main draw. You clear with that?
Very clear, and I apologize for having to leave.
No problem.
Lunch caught up to me, I think.
All right, so I'm going to call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay? So that would be a 7-2 with nay from Commissioner Barnes and Vice Chairman Johnston.